The chair will recognize myself for 5 minutes for questions. Let me just ask each and every one of you a question. The 3,000 plus Americans that died on September 11th, do you think they're comforted by the definition of invasion that has been posited by the ranking member? Just go down the line. Mr. Brnovich, do you think they're comforted by that definition of invasion?
Well, I can't speak to other members of the committee, but I will just say that obviously the president is at the apex of his or her power when it comes to border issues and immigration. So I feel like there's two ships passing in the night. This is an issue related to security, border security, right, not immigration.
All right, Mr. Brnovich, question. 3,000 Americans were killed. People are trying to say that there's a specific invasion that we haven't been invaded since 1814. Do you think the families of the 3,000 who were killed would suggest that what happened on September 11th, the product of overstayed visas and a bad system that we have here in terms of protecting against unwanted attacks, that is an invasion from the standpoint of any logical conclusion of an American who's concerned about their safety and well-being?
September 11th was an invasion and an attack on the
Mr. Hayek, would you think so?
I would think they would not be comforted.
Right. Mr. Webster?
It was an invasion.
Right. Now, Mr. Jabwat, yes or no?
I wouldn't purport to speak for the families of people who were killed.
Right. Do you think as an American, it was an invasion to have people come in and bomb buildings, fly planes into buildings, and kill 3,000 people?
You know, within the meaning of that clause of the Constitution.
People who overstayed visas.
Within the meaning of that clause of the Constitution. Because I agree with everybody here. It was an attack. I was blocks away when it happened.
So is that a yes or no? No. I mean, you're saying no then.
Not with it. I don't think so.
Right.
Not within
so for the average American watching this, and they're saying, okay, that is how we have to live in the modern world. Say that, okay, unless the redcoats are marching right in, you know, coming right up in through New York, coming up the river and saying, okay, we're here, right? Or unless there's a army with, you know, coming across the Rio Grande, that's the invasion. But when 3,000 Americans are dead because we were attacked by people who overstayed their visas because we have a very broken immigration system, or we now have people who are going around the country that just end up in Minnesota, who've been here for a year, that are clearly affiliated with terrorist organizations, that somehow we don't have to be concerned about whether or not that's an invasion, right? Do you believe that President Biden is responsible for the crisis at the southern border? Yes or no? Mr. Brnovich?
Absolutely.
Mr. Hayek?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes.
Mr. Jabwat?
No.
President Biden responsible for the crisis at the southern border?
President Biden is responsible for the policies of his administration.
So is he responsible for the present crisis at the southern border?
And to the extent that his administration...
Is that a yes or no?
Would you let me finish?
I mean, yes or no? Is he responsible for the crisis at the southern border?
He's responsible for the policies of his administration and their effects at the border.
Well, I'll take that as a yes then. Is the Biden administration responsible for the border crisis this country is facing? That, I think, was a yes. Do you believe that what is currently happening on the southern border constitutes an invasion, as we understand it in the Constitution and is applied in today's world, where we're dealing with the forces that we're dealing with around the world, with forces who want to endanger the American people? Mr. Brnovich, yes or no, is what is currently happening on the southern border an invasion?
As our first in the nation opinion expresses, this does constitute an invasion pursuant to the U.S. Constitution.
Thank you, Mr. Brnovich. Mr. Hayek?
Yes, because the cartels are committing hostile encroachment onto Texas, and that constitutes an invasion.
Thank you, Mr. Hayek. Mr. Webster?
Yes, absolutely.
And Mr. Jabwat? No. I think we know the answer. No. You believe it's no?
Not within the meaning of that
and so,
clause of the Constitution.
Here's a question. Do you believe that states like Texas or Arizona or any other state has a right to defend their citizens and take action to secure the border, particularly in the complete and abject failure of the federal government to do so, as the Constitution contemplated, notwithstanding the views expressed by some on both sides of the aisle to the contrary? Yes or no, do the citizens of those states have the right to defend their citizens and take action to secure their border? Mr. Brnovich?
The governor does indeed have the ability to call out the National Guard or use state resources to protect the citizens of their state.
Mr. Hayek?
Yes, it's clear that right is clearly stated in the Constitution.
Mr. Webster?
Yes for Texas.
Mr. Jabwat?
Again, 150 years of Supreme Court precedent says that states do not have the authority to take immigration matters into their own hands. And no governor has the right.
Was Dred Scott a good opinion that we should follow?
We're not talking about Dred Scott here. We're talking about 150
next question.
yards.
Do we have, right? What,
and no governor has the authority to override that Supreme Court
That wasn't the
precedent
question.
or
That wasn't the question. Mr.
Constitution
Jabba, with all due
by
respect, that wasn't
claiming
the question.
that an invasion
Your
is
time,
taking
your time
place.
is up. You've answered the question. We know where you stand. Do we have operational control of our southern border as defined by the Secure Fence Act of 2006, which states operational control means the prevention of all unlawful entries in the United States, includes entries by terrorists, other unlawful aliens, instruments of terrorism, narcotics, and other contraband? Yes or no? And then I'll finish my questions.
No.
Do not.
Mr. Jabba.
No, and we never have, and we never will by that definition.
Well, at least that's consistent with Secretary Mayorkas, who told me under oath in this room that he did have operational control. With that, the gentleman from Tennessee.
Thank you.